God is already there. That is the specific word for a Monday morning. Not God will be there when things get difficult. Not God is available if things become more than you can handle. Already there. Already in the meeting that has not happened. Already in the conversation that has not been had. Already in the decision that has not yet been required. Already in the unexpected thing that will arrive without announcing itself. Already in the Wednesday difficulty that Monday morning cannot see from here. Already there. Before you, preceding you into every room the week will open. The word for that is not presence. The word is going before. And the distinction matters. Presence means God is with you where you are. Going before means God is already where you are going, not arriving alongside. Already there when you arrive, having preceded you into the very situation that will most test you, having prepared what the situation requires before you have been informed of what the situation requires, having already been in the room before you opened the door. That is the God you are stepping into this week with, not a God who accompanies, a God who precedes. This is Monday, May 4th, the first Monday of May, the beginning of the week that follows the weekend that followed the week that followed April. A new week, a new beginning. And before this week has presented a single room to you, before Monday has opened the first door and revealed what is behind it, God is already in the rooms, already in the week, already at work in what has not yet been entered. The you who steps into this Monday steps into a week that God has already been in. His word declares in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 8 that the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Goes before, present tense, not a past promise about previous occasions, a current reality about this Monday, this week, this room that has not yet been entered. The Lord goes before, into it, ahead of you, and when you arrive into a place where God has already been. Before we enter this prayer, write in the comments right now, Lord, go before me into everything this week holds. I step into what you have already entered. Write it as the declaration that changes the posture of the Monday step, not the uncertain step of a person entering what is unknown, the confident step of a person entering what God has already been in, like this video as an act of choosing the step into what God has already entered. Subscribe to this channel so we can begin every week together, before the Monday has defined what the week will be entered as. And share this prayer with someone who is stepping into a difficult or uncertain week. Not someone who needs to know what is coming, someone who needs to know who has already been there. Now let us step into what God has already entered. Lord my God and my Father, I come before you on this Monday morning, and I receive something before I ask for anything. The knowledge that you are already in this week, not that you will be there if things get hard. Already. The meeting that is on today's calendar was on your calendar before it was on mine. The conversation that needs to happen this week is one you have already had knowledge of and have already been preparing for in both people. The decision that will be required is one you have already seen and have already been working toward the wisdom that will be needed. All of it, already in your hands, already being worked, already prepared. I step into a week that has been preceded, and the stepping is different when the preceding is real, not stepped into blindly, not stepped into naively as though the week will be easy because God went before. Stepped into confidently, not the false confidence of someone who has convinced themselves of a good outcome. The genuine confidence of someone who knows that what they are stepping into has already been entered by the one who holds every outcome. The rooms are not empty before I arrive. They have been occupied by the one who prepared what each room requires. Your word declares in the book of Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 2 through 3, that God says, I will go before you and will level the mountains. I will break down gates of bronze and cut through bars of iron. I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name. Go before, level, break, cut, all active verbs of preparation. What was an obstacle has been addressed before the person arrives at it. What was locked has been opened. What was hidden has been prepared to be given. The God who goes before is not passive in the going. He is actively preparing what the week's rooms will hold for the person who arrives after him. Father, I want to name what it means to step into what God has already entered in the specific rooms this week holds. The room of the difficult relationship. The relationship that is in a season that requires something more than what has been given so far. The conversation that needs to happen, but that has been difficult to approach because the right moment has not presented itself or the right words have not arrived. God has already been in that room, before the conversation, before the meeting. He is already in the interior of the other person in a way that is working in what cannot be seen from the outside. The relationship that looks entirely unsettled from the outside may be receiving exactly the attention it needs from the one who was in its room before either person arrived at the conversation. Step into that room differently today, Lord, not with the anxiety of someone who does not know what the conversation will produce, with the quiet confidence of someone stepping into a room that has already been prepared by the one who knows both sides of every conversation. And Father, I want to ask for something about how the preceded entry changes the quality of listening in that room, because the person who enters the difficult conversation, knowing they followed God into it, is freed from the defensive posture that the unpre-med entry produces. The defensive posture hears what is said through the filter of the threat it represents to the person who is alone in the room and managing the conversation from the front of it. The preceded posture hears what is said through the wider frame of someone who knows that both people in the conversation are in a room that God entered before either of them. That wider frame changes what is heard. The difficult word is heard with more accuracy and less defensiveness. The person's actual meaning is more receivable because the hearing posture is more open. And the response that comes from the more open hearing is genuinely different from the response that the defensive filter produces. Your word declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 20, verse 5, that the purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. The insight to draw out the deep water requires the stillness of the person who is not primarily defending against what the deep water might contain. The preceded entry produces that stillness. The room of the uncertain decision, the decision that has been forming for longer than is comfortable and that this week will likely require to be made. God is already in the outcome of that decision in a way that Monday cannot see. The outcome that seems uncertain from here is known from there, and the person who steps into the decision room, knowing that the God who went before it already knows its resolution, is freed from the specific anxiety of uncertain outcomes. Not freed from the decision itself, from the anxiety that the outcome is entirely dependent on the quality of the deciding. Your word declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, that in their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. The course is planned, the steps are established by God. The human planning is real and necessary. And the establishing that happens over the planned course is the activity of the one who went before the planning into the territory the planning is mapping. He was in the territory before the map was drawn, and the steps he establishes are established in full knowledge of what the territory actually contains. Lord, go before me into everything this week holds. I step into what you have already entered, the room of the unexpected. This room has no label yet. It has not announced itself as a room that will be entered this week because it has not yet identified itself as anything. But by Wednesday afternoon it will be known, and God is already in it, whatever it is. The unexpected thing that the Monday morning cannot see is entirely visible from where God is, and the preparation for it is already complete. The person who steps into the unexpected thing on Wednesday is not stepping into something God has not yet visited. They are arriving late to a room that God has been in since before Monday. The unexpected thing is only unexpected from one direction. From God's direction, it has been known and prepared for since before the week began. Lord, I want to pray now about what it means to live this week from the going before reality, rather than from the week's default of the person being first into every room. The person who enters every room before God is the person who is managing the week from the front of it. They are encountering what the week produces before God has had any input on what they are encountering. The response to the Monday email is formulated by the person before the God who was already in the email situation has been consulted. The first reaction to the unexpected Wednesday thing is the unprocessed reaction of the person who received something they were not prepared for. The decision is made from whatever the person has, without first receiving what the one who has already been in the decision's territory has to offer. That is the default mode, the person entering before God. And it is exhausting in a specific way. The exhaustion of someone who is always first into the unknown, who has never had the experience of arriving at the difficult thing and finding that the difficulty has already been prepared for, who carries the full weight of the unpreparedness because they have not been practicing the second entry. The second entry is different. God goes first. The person follows into what has been preceded. The difficult room is entered by the second person in. The first person, who knew the room and prepared it, is already there, and the second person arrives to find something that the first person's preceding produced. Not a guaranteed easy room, a prepared room. What was needed is there. What was locked has been opened. What was hidden has been stored for the person who arrives after the one who went before. Your word declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 4, that even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Through the darkest valley, not around it. The going before does not bypass the difficulty. It precedes the person into the difficulty, so that the person walks through with the comfort of someone who is accompanied by the one who was already there. The rod and the staff are already present in the valley before the person enters it. The comfort is already established. The presence is already there. That is what the going before means for the valley moments of this week, not their absence, the preceded entry into them. And I want to name something about how the knowledge of the going before changes the quality of the person's presence in the valley when they arrive. The person who enters the difficult room, knowing they are entering second, knowing God went first, knows they are not alone in a room that was empty before they arrived. They are alone in the sense that no other human is present. But the room was not empty before they entered. The one who went before is still there, working in what the difficulty requires, attending to what the person who follows cannot yet see, present in the room in the way that the pioneer is present in the territory he has already traversed. That knowing changes the quality of the person's fear, not eliminating it, contextualizing it. The fear that was about entering the unknown becomes something smaller when the room was not unknown to the one who entered it first. The anxiety about what the meeting will produce changes character when the meeting was entered before Monday morning by the one who holds its outcome. The going before does not remove the experience of the valley. It changes who the person is standing with when they are in it. Your word declares in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 31, that if God is for us, who can be against us? For us, on our side, preceding us. The forness of God is not passive support from a distance. It is the active going before of a God who is already in the week's difficult rooms, making them traversable for the person who will follow. Lord, go before me into everything this week holds. I step into what you have already entered. Lord, go before me into everything this week holds. I step into what you have already entered. Father, I want to ask for something specific about how the going before shapes the quality of my work this week. The person who enters the work, knowing that God went before them into it, approaches the work differently than the person who enters the work alone, not with less effort, with different effort. The effort that is in partnership with what the going before has already prepared, rather than the effort that is entirely self-generated in a room that the person was first to enter. The project that seems stuck has already been entered by God. The creative block that has been preventing the forward movement on something important is in a room where God has already been. And the person who enters that room, knowing they are entering second, brings the expectation that what was prepared for them is available to be received. The breakthrough is not entirely dependent on the person's effort. It is partly the receiving of what the preceding prepared. The colleague who is difficult has already been in God's presence in a way the Monday morning cannot see. And the person who walks into the meeting with the difficult colleague with the knowledge that God went before them into that relational room carries a patience and a curiosity that the person entering the room alone and first does not carry. Your word declares in the book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Carry it on. The work that God began in this person, the formation, the character, the faith, the love, the specific calling that was given before this week existed as a week, is being carried forward by the one who goes before. The work is not abandoned at the Monday entrance. It is carried through every room of the week by the one who was in the room before the person arrived. That carrying continues this week, through every room. The work that feels like it has stalled is still being carried. The formation that feels imperceptible is still underway. The calling that has not yet been fully visible is still being prepared in the rooms that have not yet been entered. God is already there, working, carrying, completing. And Father, let the going before reality change how I receive the week's feedback, because the week will produce feedback, evidence about what is working and what is not, updates on the situations that have been developing, results from the efforts that have been made. And that feedback, received by the person who entered the rooms alone and first, is received as the person's sole responsibility. The good feedback confirms the person's sufficiency. The difficult feedback indicts it. The feedback received by the person who entered second after God went before is received differently. The good feedback is the evidence of what the preceding prepared. The difficult feedback is information for the one who is still carrying the work toward completion. Neither one confirms or indicts the person's sufficiency in the same way it does for the person who entered alone, because the person who followed God into the room was never claiming to be sufficient alone in it. Your word declares in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 3, verse 5, that not that we are competent in ourselves to claim anything for ourselves, but our competence comes from God. From God. The competence that the week's feedback will be measuring is not located in the person alone. It is located in the God who went before and who continues to work in what was committed to him. The feedback is information about a shared project, not a verdict on the person's solitary performance. Father, as this prayer closes, I want to receive something I will carry from this Monday into every day this week produces. An image, simple, returnable, for the moment when the room is difficult and the proceeding seems far away. The image is this. Every door that opens this week was already opened by someone who went before me. What is on the other side of the door is not unknown to the one who went before. And when I step through, I step into what has already been entered, not into emptiness, into preparation, before the difficult meeting, before the uncertain conversation, before the unexpected thing, before the room that Monday morning cannot see from here. One breath. God went before me into this. I step into what he has already entered. Your word declares in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 1 through 2, that since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Pioneer. That word. Jesus as the pioneer. The one who went first into the territory of full humanity, full difficulty, full cost, full death, and who, having gone through it all, made the path. The pioneer makes the path for the people who follow. And the people who follow are not following into unmapped territory. They are following into what the pioneer has already traversed. Run the race marked out, not the race we chose, the one marked out. And the marking out was done by the one who went before, who already ran what we are running, who already entered what we are entering, who is already at the end of what we are beginning this Monday. That is the God we step into this week with, not a distant watcher, the pioneer who already went before, already there, already in everything the week holds, already waiting at every door for the person who is stepping into what he has already entered. And I want to name what the pioneer image specifically provides that the accompanying image cannot. The pioneer does not just walk with the person through the difficulty. The pioneer has already been through the difficulty and knows it is survivable, knows where the path leads, knows where the hard sections are and what they require, has the knowledge that comes not from anticipating the difficulty, but from having been through it. The people who follow the pioneer have something the pioneer did not have at the same stage of the journey. They have the pioneer's testimony, the knowledge that the territory that looks impassable from the entrance was in fact passed, that the valley the pioneer went through had an exit, that the difficult thing at the beginning of the week that Monday cannot see past has been seen past by the one who went before. That testimony is available to the person praying this Monday morning, not as a vague spiritual comfort, as the specific knowledge that the God who goes before this week has been through everything the week holds and is present in it from the other side of its most difficult moments. The pioneer is already at the place the person has not yet reached. Your word declares in the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 15, that we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, and yet he did not sin. Tempted in every way, through the full range of what this week will ask. Already, the pioneer was already there, and having been through it, he is with the person who follows with the full empathy of the one who knows exactly what the following costs. That is the one who goes before this week, not a distant deity sending well wishes. The pioneer who already ran the race we are running, who has full empathy for every step we will take, and who is already at the door of every room we will enter this week, waiting, having prepared, for the person who is stepping into what he has already entered. Lord, go before me into everything this week holds. I step into what you have already entered. That is the declaration this Monday begins from. Not the uncertain step of a person entering what is unknown, the confident step of someone stepping into what God has already been in. The first Monday of May, the first full week of the new month. The week that has not yet said anything about itself, and already, before a single door has opened, God has entered it. To everyone who prayed with me this morning, go back to the comments and write it one final time. Lord, go before me into everything this week holds. I step into what you have already entered. Return to that at every door this week opens. The room was preceded. The difficulty was prepared for. The unexpected thing was already known. God was already there. Subscribe to this channel and come back tomorrow morning. We are here every day, stepping into what God has already entered. Share this prayer with someone stepping into a difficult or uncertain week, not someone who needs to know what is coming. Someone who needs to know who is already there. May the Lord go before you into every room this week holds before you arrive at its door. May the meeting and the conversation and the decision and the unexpected thing all be entered as the second person in rather than the first. May the pioneer who already ran what you are running be the presence you feel in every difficult step. And may you arrive at Friday with the quiet evidence of someone who stepped into prepared rooms. Not because the week was easy, because God was already there when you arrived. In Jesus' name, amen.